Hello, welcome to our study today as we look on the life of Joseph, a life that showed us a journey from faith to redemption because he continued to believe in his dreams. I want to encourage you to get those notebooks out and begin to look at your life, make notes as you take part in this study and see where you can improve on what God has showed you to be a better version of yourself as Joseph did. Joseph's life was one of hardship, one that he had betrayals and many things that came that he was not sure what his destiny would have unfolded because of the trials. But God was with Joseph, and Joseph continued to believe God in spite of the betrayals. Joseph's story is one of extraordinary faith, perseverance, and divine purpose. He was betrayed by his own family, endured slavery, and imprisoned, and yet, through it all, remained steadfast in his trust in God. His life is a powerful reminder that even when circumstances seem bleak, God is still at work, shaping events for a greater purpose. One of the most striking aspects of Joseph's journey is his unwavering integrity, whether facing temptation, hardship, or immense power. He consistently chose righteousness. His ability to interpret dreams not only saved Egypt, but also led to the reconciliation with his very brothers who betrayed him. Through his trials and triumphs, Joseph's story teaches us about forgiveness, faithfulness, and trusting God's timing. Genesis 37, verse 1 to 11. Studying Joseph allows us to reflect on our own lives. How do we respond to betrayal or injustice? Do we trust God even when our dreams seem delayed or impossible? As we delve into his story, may we find encouragement and inspiration to persevere in faith, knowing that God's plan is always unfolding. In Genesis 37, verse 1 to 11, Joseph's story begins with his dream, visions from God that foretold his future authority. As the favored son of Jacob, Joseph received a special coat symbolizing distinction. However, his dreams and favoritism led to deep resentment among his brothers. They saw him not as a chosen leader, but as an arrogant younger sibling. This chapter sets the stage for the tension that ultimately led to Joseph's betrayal. And in this study series, we're going to also look on dreaming again after a life of betrayal and emotional pain. So that's what we're focusing on today. How do you dream again after being betrayed? And we have some nuggets for you today. God's calling may invite opposition. Joseph's dream revealed his destiny, but not everyone supported him. How do you handle criticism when God's calling is on your life and when you are following God's plan? Favoritism and jealousy created strife. How can families work towards unity despite differences? Faith in God's promises. Joseph's dreams seemed impossible at the time. They later came true. How can we trust God's plan when they seem distant? Here are some questions for you today. What were Joseph's dreams, and how do they foreshadow his future? How did Jacob's favoritism contribute to this conflict? What does the chapter teach us about handling envy and opposition? Have you ever faced opposition when pursuing something important? How can we stay patient when God's promises seem delayed? What steps can we take to prevent jealousy and conflict in our families? These are some questions that I would love for you to answer in today's study. And so we look as to the reasons behind betrayals, the reasons behind envy and opposition. And that's what has caused so many issues in family. We often don't go to the root of the envy. Envy, jealousy, all these have root causes. And oftentimes the root causes can come because maybe one child is favored over the other, and the child could have this feeling for years until it manifests into adulthood. And so what you see happening now in some families, it did not happen overnight. It was something that was there, surfacing below the surface until it finally manifested into outward actions. And so I encourage you as parents, this is for parents today, that you love your children. And remember that they all came from your womb. And so you need to love them, because if one child sees that one is loved over the other, that can create a whole generation of envy, of hatred, of bitterness. And so as God has given me this series, this was something that was in my heart about keeping dreams alive, because I felt even sometime in my own personal life that I would have put some of my dreams on the back burner. But that season when I got that word, it was because I felt like it was time that I was not in the shell anymore, but that God was taking me out of the cocoon, taking me out of the shell and making me into who He has called me to be. And so I encourage you today that in spite of your hardships, in spite of your setbacks, in spite of the things that would have come at you that make life seem so hard and indifferent, you have to rise up in yourself and know that what God has said, His promise is sure, and He will bring it to pass. God promises never fail. It was just on Sunday I heard the preacher talking about the wish of Elisha to do double miracles, and to know that the last one happened with his bones. He died, and they put the man in his grave because there was war in that land, and the man was hid in the grave, so to speak, and he came alive because of the power that was there, the anointing on those bones. He was anointed to the bones. And the message was about keeping that promise alive. So even though Elisha died, the promise was kept, and that man came back to life because he touched the bones of the anointed prophet of God. You might feel like your situation is so dead. You might feel like the promise has died. You might feel like what God said will not come to pass, like with Abraham and Sarah. They did not believe until they had their own encounter with God and to know that what God promised them was going to come to pass. Betrayal is never a nice thing. It's never a good feeling. But as we progress into this study, we're going to look at how you can overcome betrayals, how you can move past the pain, the hurt, how you can be restored even to those who have done you wrong. And so I encourage you today, as we take the time out to stop by and to say, dream again. I want to encourage you in this season. Do not allow hardship. Do not allow setbacks. Do not allow betrayals to stop you. God has given you the unction to function. And so I encourage you today, dream again, because God is still on the throne. God bless you today.